everybody, it's Dave here, Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers. Been publicly commenting on your Minnesota Vikings for over 2 decades apiece, and we still do it. We're gluttons for punishment. And obviously, if you've joined us today, and I want to welcome everybody from Bob and Norsefius, and Patrick and Edwin and Jason, Jay, Delton, welcome. You're here, and you are just as big gluttons for punishments as we are. And there's Ant joining us as well. Well, today, we're not doing the normal 3 themes because we didn't have time to quite prep for 3 themes, but we're going to fill the whole hour. I guarantee it, because we've got a lot to talk about. And we'll get to that next on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock! Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikingsland with Darren and Dave, your 2 old bloggers. Shit. Here we go. Here we go. You should be able to hear us now. Do you hear us now?
Let us know in the comments section.
You should be able to hear us now. For some reason, it is between switching. It mutes us. Now, I'll just let y'all know, I've got this new Stream Deck. I've got a program this week once I get a little bit of free time. Well, there you go, camera. And hopefully that'll stop that. But anyways, we're talking about Costa Rica because Darren's going to be down in Costa Rica starting next week, enjoying the heat. I think he's going to be miserable because he's going to be too hot because his body's used to being sub-zero. But that's just me. Who knows? He may be lowering his body temperatures with lots and lots of beverages, fine beverages. We'll find out. But the show will keep on going. We'll have guests or maybe not. We'll find out. But it's going to keep on going. But we're just talking. It's been a very, very, very busy week, as you all know, because of the NFL Combine. We titled this one, Vikings Combine Interpretations, because it depends what you saw, what you read, and what you hear. Darren, I know we came in mute, but how are things in the Great White North?
Couldn't be better, Dave. Couldn't be better. Cold as hell here, but I'm going somewhere in a week where it's not going to be like that. So snake pictures, if I see any, Nick, I'll do that. Howler monkeys, whatever. I'll take lots of photos. Apparently, it's illegal, though, to take photos of the wildlife in Costa Rica at certain places because it leads to animal poaching, I heard. Anyway, we'll find out about that.
Didn't know that. That's interesting. Well, cool. Well, with that, let's get started on today's show. As soon as I scroll down a bit, find it. I got so many notes, people, so many notes. If you'd work with Darren, I could tell you we've got so many notes. But that's a good thing. We're going to start off with theme 1, as usual. This week in Vikingsland.
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, Dave, it was a really busy week for the Minnesota Vikings, and so want to go through a lot of the stuff that we've all heard it, but just going to give you our takes on things on this week in Vikingsland. The first topic is going to be Kirk Cousins is everywhere. Want to get into this because with Kirk Cousins getting set to hit free agency for the second time in his career, he is making sure that he is being seen and heard all the time. And we've talked about Kirk and his marketing prowess in the past and how he's so good at it. But hey, look, Kirk Cousins, he's on the NFL honors. Look at him. He's dancing with a bunch of guys. Look, Kirk Cousins is in he's happened to show up at a indoor tennis court, and he's thrown the ball a couple of times. Look, Kirk Cousins is on Instagram, and he's got these custom-made grills made for his teeth that that show that like just some of his young teammates also wear. It's just been look, Kirk Cousins is showing up at some at his hometown colleges, one of their classes. He shows in, takes a picture, answers a couple of questions. So it is this guy has been putting on, like, I know it doesn't seem like all been a lot of deals, but he's got when it comes to Kirk Cousins and whoever's in his business team, they are like putting on like a masterclass in marketing. Kirk Cousins and Cousins hitting free agency. What they're doing is they're marketing a product, and that product is Kirk Cousins, which is pretty important for him when you get into free agency, and there's so many dollars at stake here for both the teams and for Kirk Cousins, even though he says it's not about the money, it's about what the money represents or something along those lines.
Yeah, sure.
but he was yucking it up at Super Bowl weekend too. He did multiple interviews, and you see one there with Mike Florio and Chris Sims, and he had the matching jackets, and Kirk and KJ Osborne was in on that particular interview itself. But really, Kirk Cousins is like, this is all very calculated, and that's okay. Like he is for one, and it's all marketing different aspects of Kirk Cousins, like the video that came out a couple of weeks of him before free agency at the tennis court. If teams are concerned about what kind of player he's going to be coming off an Achilles, well, here you got a shot of him, only a couple of throws, but he looks like he's moving well, throwing the ball with some zip. So that potentially could give teams less concerns about whether Kirk Cousins will be the player he was before the Achilles tear, in 2024 and beyond. Same thing with the dancing routine, the NFL honors. He was moving good, doing those sorts of things. If he was really having a lot of problems and concerned about his Achilles, well, he wouldn't be up there dancing at all. So, on the field stuff that allays a lot of concerns. When you got getting the custom made grills, that shows that he's kind of a fun guy, willing to do anything. Just one of the guys. Going to the class at the college in Michigan, again, same sort of thing, shows that he's just a regular dude and a good guy in the community. And I think all of those things are little pictures that are important to get out to potential employers. That show all these things are kind of showing, writing a story for Kirk Cousins right now. Great player, great teammate, great human being. And those are all things that, potential employers, including the Vikings, like to see from the players that they're going to hand over a lot of money to. So all of this very calculated by Kirk Cousins, and he's got a great team. He might not make the Hall of Fame, Dave,
No.
unless he wins a couple of Super Bowls in the twilight of his career. But he's putting on a Hall of Fame performance right now as far as marketing goes, and the marketing of Kirk Cousins.
And obviously with his agent, they've got to be Hall of Fame for getting the big money contracts. He's gotten the money. He's made to maximize what he's been able to maximize through the tags in Washington, and then the fully guaranteed multi-year deal, only 3 years long, and then turn around and get a guaranteed for extensions. He's done his job at that. He's just been absolutely fantastic. The way he played the Jets versus the Vikings when we first signed him, all that has just been absolutely masterful. And I think this offseason, it's been masterful as well. And we'll get into some of the comments by Coach O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah that they've made this week concerning that. But it is what he does and what his team does puts him out there in the spotlight, makes him desirable by more than one team, which raises his price. And he's going to, go out there. This will probably be his final contract. I doubt he plays to 45, but this will be probably his final contract, and it should be a big one, and he's going to maximize it. And that's a good thing for him and his family. I can't fault that. He's done well. They'll be set up for life, and that's good. And Bills Mafia says he hopes we pay Kirk $50 million. Bills Mafia, not a chance. I'm hoping Atlanta does. So, and we'll see what happens when that hits. We're only 10 days away from free agency, and we might find out even a little bit before that. But who knows? Who knows? That takes us to the next topic you wanted to talk about, right? Unless you got some Kirk Cousins stuff left.
No, I do not want to go into the next topic, but thanks for the comments, everybody. 50 million is probably a little rich for my liking. But yes.
Northfield's wondering about Bills Mafia's health, wondering he's got too many concussions breaking those tables. Could be. Yeah. We're worried for you, Bills Mafia, and we know you imbibe just as much as we do. So.
Yes, Alexander Mattison, we learned earlier this week that the Vikings are going to release him. Now, when I talked several weeks ago, the running back positional unit rundown, that was the second one we did to start the year. And at that point, I was talking about how I thought, Mattison had coming off a pretty poor year, but I felt that the Vikings would keep him around. He wasn't going to cost much. And just the fact that running back is such a punishing physical position where players often get hurt, miss several games, a few games, maybe the whole season. It's just a position of attrition, and so he would be a useful depth piece, even though I felt that Ty Chandler was going to be the starter. Well, that didn't happen. And what we also, I think I wasn't aware of it, was that there had been some talk that all of his deal was guaranteed, but it turns out that it wasn't. And so when you couple the fact that his production was pretty subpar last year, and the fact that the Vikings could save just over $3 million in cap space by releasing him, then that's a move that I can get on board with, and the Vikings got on board with it pretty quick too. So Mattison will not be a Viking in 2024. Does that mean that Ty Chandler is running back number one, though, Dave? For now, yes. For later,
for this moment, yes.
For later, I'm not so sure. Even though I liked some of the things, a lot of things, particularly late in the season, that I saw Ty Chandler do, I don't think that the Vikings are going to go into the 2024 season with him, Kenny Nwangwu, Dwayne McBride, and Myles Gaskin as your running back room. And free agency in particular has some pretty enticing guys that they could potentially pencil in there, and would be a player who could be the running back number one if they're not completely sold or confident on handing that job to Ty Chandler. Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, of course. You got Gus Edwards. You've got Devin Singletary. Josh Jacobs is another one. And Jacobs, Singletary, and Saquon Barkley are still in that 26, 27 range. Tony Pollard as well. Those are all guys that the Vikings could sign, and they would be in. You could slot them in as running back number one right away.
Yeah, I tracked down their ages. Saquon will be 27 at the beginning of the season. Josh Jacobs will be 26, Singletary 27, and Pollard 27. The other two guys, Eckler and Gus Edwards, will be 29.
Yeah. Saquon Barkley, just as a guy, he'd be the biggest name out of that, him and Josh Jacobs. Both Jacobs and Barkley have quite a bit of miles on them, even though they're still fairly young. But again, would I take them on a 1-2 year deal? Yeah, probably. The only thing is we don't know just yet what the market is going to be, what our NFL teams, going to be willing to pay for running backs in this free agency period, especially with the depth of this free agency class right now a little bit stronger than it has been in past years. So is that going to put down the value? Or we don't know. We also don't know exactly what the Vikings, what they're willing to pay for a free agent running back right now. And are they going to price themselves out of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's wheelhouse? I don't know. But I think if you're looking at the draft, if the Vikings really at this point in time, if they're looking at really going to take a big swing at a quarterback of the future and looking to trade up into, get a draft pick that's a bit earlier than 11, they're going to have to give up draft picks in this draft and in the next draft to do that. In which case, I don't think that they'd have the draft capital to get a running back early enough who could come in and challenge Ty Chandler for the number one running back spot. So if they're doing that, then certainly I think they're going to have to target a running back in free agency and one of the top ones in free agency. So keep your eye on the running backs in free agency right now and see what the Vikings do there. But I think Tyler Fornes and you had a show, you talked about Saquon Barkley. What's the chances of him being a Viking? I think about a week ago. By releasing Mattison and with them having a little bit more cap space right now, I think that becomes more of a possibility than I would have thought of a week ago or 2 weeks ago, because they've got some work to do to fill out that running back room.
Yeah, very well could be, because I doubt Ty Chandler's nice. Ty Chandler has explosiveness that we all like, but Ty Chandler has problems sometimes on pass blocking and some other issues. Does he develop that over the offseason? Possibly, but we'll find out. But I think the Vikings might go with that, going for the Barkley type or somebody like that to spur the running game a little bit and to take pressure off of whoever's our next quarterback, because you want to be able to run the football a little bit better. So we'll find out, and it's a good thing. Bills Mafia, you trade your first 3 picks and Diggs for JJ. Yeah, I can understand that. But Diggsy, I don't know if you know, there's my artwork of Diggsy.
Great piece of artwork too.
Yeah, and there goes the camera again. Of course, that's when he's played for the Vikings before we traded him off. Delton asked, what about Akers?
I just don't see that the Vikings tendering him or doing anything like that, because one, Achilles bad enough for running back. 2 Achilles, even if it's not the same foot, is really not great. And is it possible they bring him back on a cheap vet minimum type deal with nothing guaranteed? Sure, but I think that at this point, with the injuries that he's had, I'd be more comfortable with them bringing in somebody else, and somebody who's better than Akers too, which would be Barkley, Jacobs, even Devin Singletary, guys like that. And they're still at an age where you could probably get another couple of 1 or 2 good years out of them before the wheels fall off.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We'll find out. Hey, everything is going to start to heat up in 10 days.
Yes.
And we're going to find out now whether the running backs go first or not. That's a big question, but there'll be some in that first week. You got to remember, free agency starts officially on the 13th of the new league year. You have your mad rush at the beginning for the players to get overpaid that everybody wants. and then it starts to slow down, and then you get the second tier, and then followed later by the third tier, where you're just filling your roster spots and vet minimums on those guys. So we'll see. That brings us to the next move by your Minnesota Vikings. They hired this guy.
Yeah, our old buddy Josh McCown. Remembered by Vikings fans for how he screwed us in 2003 and that infamous cost the Vikings a playoff spot in the infamous 2003 game. Last second throw to Nate Poole knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs. But this week he signed on as the Vikings quarterback coach. So the Vikings are continue to round out their coaching staff. Sean O'Hara, who was the quarterback's coach last year and the past 2 years, is now a passing game specialist.
Chris O'Hara.
Chris O'Hara.
Yes, and there's his mugshot.
Yeah.
I almost made a digital sign. I got demoted to pass game coordinator.
So, getting McCown in there is an interesting. That hire had some people speculating about McCown, about that was the Drake May connection, that he was on the high school coaching staff in 2019 when Drake May was there, and led to some speculation that the Vikings must really like May and they're targeting him. I'm sure they do like May. A lot of just probably all 32 teams like him in some way, shape, or form. But I don't. I think that was 2019. It's a bit of a stretch, I think, to say that McCown, the Vikings signed McCown specifically because they're targeting May and they want McCown to coach May. We don't even know if McCown and May liked each other down there, and a lot has changed. Changed.
He did start May over his own son, so that was. Yeah. He appreciated the talent, at least.
Yes, he sure did. And a lot's changed in 2019. We don't even know how close they are or if they're close at all. But so that's been out there. But I think for me, the important thing in this hire is how good of a coach is Josh McCown? Is he a guy that's going to take the Vikings quarterbacks that he's coaching next year and make them better quarterbacks? I don't know what his X and O acumen is. He's coaching in the NFL, so he's obviously got some. But I think that there's a lot that he has a lot to offer the Vikings and whoever's in the quarterback room this year, Dave. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that played 18 seasons of professional football for 12 different NFL teams. Now, not a superstar, a journeyman for sure. But when you look at his experience, he's played at the quarterback at the NFL for a long time, so he's got, I think, immediately when he walks in a room, he's going to have respect there. That this is a guy that knows the pro game, and I think he can be a great asset as far as imparting to the Viking, whoever's the Viking quarterbacks, just what's it like to be a professional, how to prepare to be a professional, how to last in the league a long time, regardless of what your talent is like. I think he's a guy that can, help Vikings quarterbacks on how to get the most out of their talent, whether you're a first-round draft pick or you're an undrafted rookie free agent. And he's a guy who can help quarterbacks with talking to them about his experience in dealing with the ups and downs that inevitably happen when you're a quarterback in the NFL, and how to deal with being a starting quarterback in the NFL and the pressure that comes with that position, and how you deal with it, and how you separate the noise and still go out and play winning football on Sundays. So I think there's a lot of things here that there is to like about the Josh McCown hire, and I think that he's going to be a great sounding board, particularly for the younger quarterbacks. We're expecting the Vikings are going to draft one this draft. I think he's going to be a great sounding board for Darren Hall, who's a fifth-round guy, kind of a similar situation like when McCown came in the league. Not a high draft pick, maybe a bit of an underdog, people not expecting a lot of him. I think he can help Hall, and I think he can help all quarterbacks, but particularly with the younger guys, I think his experience, his journey in the NFL he's got important wisdom to to give them and to help them succeed at the NFL level. So I like the hire, and I'm really interested to see what McCown can do with the quarterback talent that he's going to have in Minnesota in 2024.
I do too. And he and KOC know each other, have known each other for years. They're going to work well together. He'll be able to explain KOC's approach, offense, to whether it's a veteran or to, raising the young guys up. Joe says Darren Hall has no talent. Darren Hall has some talent. It's whether you can groom it and improve it to a level that's acceptable, at least to hold a clipboard. And that's all he was drafted for, as a 5th-round draft choice, to see if they could develop him. And if not, that's what you expect from a 5th-rounder. So it is what it is. But I think it's a good hire. It's going to be interesting to see him on the sidelines and on the field as we move into OTAs and then training camp, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll find out. And Joe, do you know, I espoused when we drafted it, no 5th-rounder has ever become a sustained starter in the NFL at all. None. 0. They got him in the 6th round, and they got him in the 7th, and they got him 1 through 4, but not in the 5th. So he was just a developmental experiment is all you got to view him as. So, and if he becomes a clipboard holder, good for him.
A developmental experiment that there was no way that he should have been playing this year as a rookie.
Yeah, but you can't anticipate injuries and all that happened. So it is what it is. It's an experiment. Yeah, you change out the ingredients and you try it. We traded for Dobbs, didn't cost us anything, and tried that. That worked good for 2 weeks, failed the next 2. Did Hall, that failed, and then Mullins, which was successful, all except for the interceptions. It is what it is. That's why we're in the quarterback market this year. Brings us to our next topic. How do the NFL players rate each team in the league, specifically your Minnesota Vikings? Talking about the NFL Players Association report card.
Yes, it came out this week, and as folks watching might remember, the Vikings were number 1 with a bullet last year in this survey. We talked about it then. We're going to talk about it again now. We finished 2nd this year, just got edged out by the Miami Dolphins. But again, just edged out, and the NFLPA made it quite clear that Minnesota, your Vikings, and the Miami Dolphins are knocking it out of the park when it comes to work environment for their players. This is what they said in the Minnesota report card. Minnesota, along with Miami, have separated themselves into their own tier of what it means to run a world-class NFL workplace. Pretty high praise, Dave, for your Minnesota Vikings, especially when we all know how freaking competitive the NFL is. Everybody's trying to be number 1 in everything. And so for the Vikings to be, and the Dolphins, but we don't care about the Dolphins, but for the Vikings to be the NFLPA that represents the players to say that the Vikings are like miles ahead of just about everybody else in the league is great news, and it shows the commitment that this organization has to winning, I think.
I want you to notice real quick. I just to divert, I studied architectural engineering in school. Their building setup and our building setup are real similar. I think they took theirs after ours. And I was looking at pictures of their interior. It's sweet. They've got just like we do. They got a sweet locker room. They've got the ice pools. They've got theater seating and, for meetings and such. It's a sweet, sweet setup. And they're the only 2 teams I know in the NFL that have that sort of setup. They don't have as many practice fields. They only have 2 practice fields here, and then off to the right, which you can't see, they've got a covered set of bleachers. That's a little bit bigger than the ones we have off of our practice field, but it's nice. And of course, you can see their stadium in the background. But they both stand out heads and shoulders above everybody else. Everybody else is trying to play catch up.
Mm-hmm. Now, George has got a comment there, which I was going to get to, which is like, but still no Super Bowl, and that's true. Like, when does this? They've only put out the survey, this report card. This is only the second year, so, and they've added some categories to it from last year. But it's true. When is this world class work environment that the Wilfs and Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah are building in Minnesota, when is that going to translate into Super Bowls and conference titles and Super Bowls? Well, first, the Vikings have to get a franchise quarterback and build a roster around that franchise quarterback to better than what it is now for us to, I think, to start consistently competing and winning Super Bowls like the Kansas City Chiefs are doing, who finished, I think, 32nd in this.
Yes, they were last. And the only thing they did was, heard an interesting story about them, was they were supposed to improve their locker room, and all they did was change out the chairs, and then the Hunt family or whoever runs it said, sorry, we didn't have enough time to do the construction because you guys won the Super Bowl the year before. And it's going to be interesting. But Kansas City's coming up on they have their own issues. They're coming up on the time when they got to figure out what to do with Arrowhead, because Arrowhead is deteriorating. The concrete itself is deteriorating. It's causing structural problems. Whether they wanted to refurb it and get it, a patch type deal, or if they just want to build new, and they could build new because they have the advantage that the Royals moved out of their stadium into downtown, and that space next to the stadium is open. So they could do that if they wished, and they've said they want to bring it up. I think it's going to be just like in college. If you look at some of the fancier college programs, they attract players by their training facilities. They build big, beautiful indoor fields. They've got locker rooms that are super duper spacious. They have museums. They've got everything, the college player would ever want and desire. And that's a selling point. And the NFL is doing that just as well. Alabama's a big one. Syracuse, New York's another one. South Carolina is one. That's the one that I helped design their indoor stadium on back when I was doing steel buildings. It's all there, and it attracts, hopefully, players, but it makes your working conditions so much nicer if you have a nice place to go work. And that's what part of this evaluates. Sorry.
It does. And I think, yes, the winning a Super Bowl, this isn't the deciding factor in the Vikings winning a Super Bowl on a regular basis. But I think all things being equal, and I said this last year, is that the Vikings being so highly rated by their players in so many categories, from coaching to training facilities to training staff to the ownership, all the way down. I don't think they were any lower than ninth in any of the categories. Well, all things being equal, I think you can, with this report card, what this says is that the Vikings, if they really want to get a player, whether it's going to be great in recruiting players to your team, as well as coaching staff and front office staff to your team. And all things being equal, the Vikings are not going to lose out on a player that they really want because of stuff like other teams are doing, like they're making players room together, or the training facilities are too small, or they're making didn't happen this year, or they're making you pay for your meals, all that sort of stuff.
No child care during game days, that sort of stuff, where the complaints for a bunch of teams, bad weight rooms, right? The Arizona Cardinals got slammed on that one last year.
Yeah. So these are all work environment stuff that the players like coming to work. They want to come to work. They marvel at the facilities. It's got everything they need to make them successful. And when they get into the workplace, they're not worrying about anything other than themselves and how they're going to perform on the field. And that's a plus. And the Vikings are knocking it out of the park, and that's a good thing.
Dalton says the weather. Well, there is two things that go against Minnesota naturally, and that is, one, the weather. It gets cold, and a lot of these guys are from the South. They're not used to that. And you see here, that's Tyler. He's grinding film from the combine. Good, Tyler, because we get to talk about the big round bellies tonight around 7:00. You want to stay tuned for that. But you got the weather, and the other thing is taxes.
Yes.
One of the reasons why Miami is so loved is there's no income tax in Miami. It's state income tax. So
yes,
it's people like that. When you make tons and tons of money and you only have to pay a fraction of it in income tax, it's a good thing. Ooh, and Tyler's got an Odie update. That's good to see.
But I've never heard of a free agent, at least I can't remember when, a free agent or a draft pick saying, I didn't want to come to Minnesota or because A, B, and C. I've never heard that since the Wilfs have been owners of this team. So I think, that says something. And this report card and how highly the Vikings are ranked in so many categories, including ownership, where I think the Wilfs were ranked the second best owner or the first, and Kevin O'Connell was second.
Like A+.
Coaches. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So players like the leadership on this team, and that's important too. Just a lot of good things there. Doesn't mean you're going to win the Super Bowl next year, but it certainly doesn't hurt your efforts to win the Super Bowl, and actually I think helps quite a bit.
I do too. And one of their lowest rank was the weight room, and they ranked 9th out of 32 teams. Like I said, the Arizona one was considered a safety hazard because the floor wasn't level, and there was a whole bunch of problems down there in Arizona. It's a poorly run franchise, and that's what it is. Yes. But ours is a very, very nice weight room. I don't know what brought them down to 9th. Ours is 2 stories. What you see here is the main floor with the weights. Then they got the upper area for more of the cardio gear. So, hey, if the players want it bigger or better, I'm sure the Wilfs will shell out that money and make it happen, because they haven't not done that since they've owned the team. They've always tried to make it better.
Yes. And the NFL being as competitive as it is, this report card is great for letting teams know where they're coming up short in areas too. And so teams, and the report card went into that for certain teams where they were ranked low in a certain category last year, where they changed that, fixed that this year, and it got better rankings. This wasn't the Vikings, but other teams that ranked lower. So it keeps the NFL franchises on their toes, and for the most part. And if you got an ownership, anything worth their salt, they're going to look at this and say, we really sucked in X category. We got to do something about that, because that might be costing us getting players into the building.
Well, and it did lead to the trainer was released.
Yes.
And now the vice president for that sort of stuff is now in charge of that. And it was because he was supposedly an asshole to the players. They supposedly gave him grief. The story I heard is somebody would come in and ask for a bag of ice so they could put on their, torn quad, whatever, thinking, want them there. And he'd give them grief about it. And it's like, no, the guys want ice, you give them ice. That's what it's there for. You need more ice, get a bigger ice machine. It's that simple. We had them in our workplace, and that's what they're there for. They don't cost that much. So, but it helps. It helps. It makes for a nicer workplace. And everybody likes to go in and work in a nice workspace, whether you're telecommuting from the house, or if you're going into, a factory floor, you want it nice and clean, safe, well lit, preferably air conditioned if it can be, all that sort of stuff. It makes your life so much better. And the happier you are at work, the happier you tend to perform, and the better you tend to perform, the more likely chance we're going to go a long way and get hopefully to the promised land once again, if you select the right players. And speaking of which, that brings us to our next theme. It's been Combine Week all week. And talking about selecting the correct players, these 2 individuals on the screen are there to hopefully find some for the future. And they spoke about it.
They did, Dave, because Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell probably they are the two most important guys as far as determining what the Vikings roster is going to look like in 2024. Anytime they open their mouths, Viking fans should be paying attention. And now that we're 10 days from free agency and about 2 months from the 2024 draft, we should really be paying attention to every time they open their mouths. And they had that opportunity this week. They had media press conferences at the NFL Combine, and they said a bunch of stuff. And so what we're doing here is just picking out a few things that they said and trying to parse from what they said and try to find some meaning to it, or at least I am. Not surprisingly, when they got up at their available at their pressers, Dave, they did not say anything definitive at all, and I wouldn't expect them to.
Yeah,
wouldn't expect them to. But it's interesting just to see how do they approach the questions that they get asked, and what kind of messaging are they providing when they're answering those questions. I was a bit disappointed in some of the reporters' questions. They didn't seem to really press either Kwesi or Kevin O'Connell on what are you going to do about the quarterback position? Like, what's it going to take to bring Kirk back? There was there was even some weird questions about like Gerard Mayo and because Kevin O'Connell had worked with him and all about him getting the coaching job. And I'm like, who the F cares? As far if you're a Vikings fan, you don't. But anyway, they did say some things, some noteworthy things. Of course, they got asked about Kirk Cousins, and the whole chat here seems to be all about Kirk, which is good. Keep it up. But I thought that again, both of them. I'll be interested to get your thoughts on this too, Dave. But if you were looking for them to make something definitive about Kirk Cousins, you didn't get it. But I think that what they did say was they made it clear, yes, we love Kirk. Yes, we want Kirk back. I think they also made it clear that, or at least what I read into it was that we want him back, but it's not going to be at any cost. And I think we've seen that in the press, in various tweets on social media from various NFL experts so far that seems to be the way the Vikings are playing it. So I think, if you're a Vikings fan and you're looking for a definitive, the Vikings are not bringing back Kirk Cousins, you're disappointed because you didn't get that, but they were never going to say that anyway. They would never play that hand. They still have Cousins as part of the team. But I think that really what they didn't say, and some of the things that they did say, they set up the groundwork that hey, Kirk's a great player. We're going to have we're going to have competition and lots of it for his services. The price, because of that, the price might get a little bit too rich for us, and that's what I took out of it. And I think that's good news to me. Kevin O'Connell was a bit more, I think, more effusive in his praise of Kirk, and that kind of worried me a little bit because. He was a fanboy for Kirk and talking about how much he loves him, and this is but that's no secret.
Friends, since Washington, and
and loves his family and all that sort of stuff. But I do think that they're setting things up to say that Kirk's great, but he's probably going to be setting the fans up to be prepared that he's probably going to be too expensive for what we want to pay right now, and. So that's why I'm continue to believe until I see otherwise that Kirk Cousins on March 13th post there, he is going to be playing for sign with somebody else, and it won't be with the Vikings. What our plan B is, or at quarterback without Kirk, I don't know, but I don't think Kirk is going to be here based on the amount of years he's going to want for a contract and the amount of money he's going to want for a contract. And how much of it is guaranteed?
Well, I took it when he had this interview with Rich Eisen on the set or up in there as they were watching. He said some certain things, and people have pointed out it was in the past tense. Part of the quotes up there of "I've had a blast coaching him," had as in past tense, right? And that. He believes he's going to go through the full process and that he deserves to be a free agent, that he's going to test free agency. Well, if he's going to be a free agent, the free agent market where the Vikings could still bring him back lasts a whopping 48 hours, right? It's it. At 3 o'clock Central on the 13th, 10 days from now, the new league starts. And that's when free agency opens up in full. The 48 hours prior is the legal tampering period. We are now in the illegal tampering period, which the NFL turns a blind eye to. But unless something's done in that 48 hours, Kirk Cousins is going to be playing most likely for another team, because right after that March 13th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the new league year starts, his $28.5 million dead cap rolls into this season, and the Vikings have to pay for it. It's already figured it, the guys at OTC and the other cap spot are already figuring that into our money numbers. That's already figured in. But there would be no cap savings if we extended him after that point. It would all be added on top of that, and that's when the Vikings are like, no way. From what I'm gathering, the Vikings have a set number, whatever it is, and that they're not going over that, and that's probably more Kwesi because he's the spreadsheet guy, right? He's the one that's in charge of, I've got to build this team. I got to track the numbers, right? Where a coach is like, I want the best guys, period, and I want Kirk, right? And that's the way that's supposed to work. And so we can have you. Here's our offer. You're going to take it or leave it. And Kwesi's people have already been in contact with other teams, the illegal tampering part, and there's interest and they're willing to pay more. And so I expect Kirk Cousins will not be our quarterback in 2024. He will go on to greener pastures, probably down in Atlanta, because of the rumors we heard this week about, or not the rumors, the reports that Arthur Blank is saying he wants Kirk Cousins to do everything possible to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if an owner wants something, the owner generally gets it.
Yes. And again, with the Vikings having reportedly a specific price point that they will not go beyond, Arthur Blank just needs to go beyond that to get Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
If you really want them. We're going to stick with the quarterbacks, though, as far as looking into things that were said by Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell on the quarterback stuff. And I want to highlight a couple of things that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah got asked about. What do you look for in a quarterback? And so he basically said it boils down to two things. A player, when the play is called, can deliver the ball on time and in rhythm on time and get it where it needs to be. The second thing is a player that basically will take a play when it doesn't work and turn something positive out of that play. When there's chaos around him, even if there's chaos around him, he makes it work and gets a positive play out of it. Well, I thought that was interesting because Kirk is very good at the former, not so much at the latter. So you got to be careful about reading too much into these comments, Dave, but I think all GMs would want a quarterback who can do both. But just interesting that he said that, and considering where we're at with the Kirk Cousins negotiations and him being part of the team, and talking about looking at a quarterback who can turn something nothing into something, and that's something that Kirk Cousins doesn't do very often. And so, does that mean that the Vikings are looking at really targeting somebody like, say, Jaden Daniels, and are going to, sell the farm to move up to 2 or 3 in the draft from 11 to get him, because Daniels is a guy who can do that in spades. So just a bit of an interesting comment there, and just another little, when you're reading the tea leaves, another signal that Kirk Cousins' days with the Viking are getting shorter and shorter, because he's just not the quarterback that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah thinks is what we need to get where we want to go, which is Super Bowl and to win it.
I agree. It's going to be interesting. Now, which quarterbacks, what was your impression of how, now this is speculation on our part, how do you think they viewed the quarterbacks that were there that actually threw? All right. The question we got to ask: who best fits? A KOC offense, or you think the Vikings will go through? Jaden Daniels is a wonderful quarterback. I'd love to have him. Absolutely love to have him. I'll give him as an example. Jaden Daniels, he can throw, he can run. He's a prolific runner. And
Yes.
But does that sort of fit into what you think KOC wants, considering KOC has been focused on the pocket passer because that's what Kirk Cousins was? Or do you want more of a pocket passer that has the ability to run on top of that? And let's say take J.J. McCarthy instead. Which do you think they're going to go for?
Well, what I've heard on other shows, Dave, and what other friends of the show, like even Drew Bunting was on a couple of weeks ago, and him and Ted in the Vikings report. But I think the belief is that, and particularly what we saw with the Josh Jobs experience as it got dragged on past the first 2 weeks, the belief is that O'Connell does not want a quarterback who ad libs, who's like a dual threat kind of scrambler. He wants the traditional pocket passer. I don't know if I don't believe that. I think that Kevin O'Connell is smart enough that he just wants a really good quarterback in there, and if they happen to be a pocket passer and don't run very much, that's fine if that's what he's got. But he'd rather have the guy who can make plays off script, and make plays with his legs if that's what's necessary. And he said something, Kevin O'Connell, in his press availability at the combine, where he said exactly that. He said, as a coach, I'm going to get paraphrased here. I'm not the exact words, but he said, as coaches, it's up to coaches to make fit your system to the players that you have. So to me, that tells me that he's quite happy to work with Jaden Daniels, who's not the traditional pocket passer, but is a fantastic athlete, and a great scrambler, but can also throw the ball through a brick wall. I don't think that he would. Sure, he's going to like one. He's got his quarterbacks rated at certain amounts. I don't know how close the rate, how close their grades are on all these guys, but I don't think he's going to shy away from Jaden Daniels or somebody else because he prefers somebody like Drake. Drake May is more his quarterback. Yeah. And people have been saying Drake May is kind of would be the guy that out of the top three would be the guy that would fit Kevin O'Connell's offense best. But based on his comments about fitting your system to the player, I don't think that's actually the case. And it shouldn't be when you're a coach. You should be you get the best player, and if he's got a different skill set than what you're used to having, you work with that and you make the offense fit the guy's talents and run plays that make the best use of his abilities. That's what good coaching is. You got to adapt. You got to make the best use of your talent, regardless of what their talents are.
I want to answer this real quick before we continue this conversation. Just win one. What's up, Dave? What's in the drink? He likes drinking whiskey too. Just win one. I very much like the Texas funk and Texas whiskeys. What this one is Lone Wolf. It comes from a distillery just on the other side of Lake Travis from me. It's probably a 40-minute drive-ish. And they distill their own, age it. This is a bourbon, straight bourbon. It's got a 45% alcohol, 90 proof. And it's good. It's nothing to write home about. It's not an award winner. There's plenty of those down here. But it's good. And for the value and the price, I think it was under $40. It was very, very good. And I very much enjoy my bourbons and my ryes. I like a little funk and I like a little spice when it comes to it. The other night I was drinking the Blackman, whatever it was, that had its base was a mix between a Minnesota, 80% Minnesota distilled raw whiskey, i.e. white. They've gone through the pot distill 2 or 3 times, come out, they ship it in a tote, comes down to the distiller here, which is located near San Antonio, and then they add theirs, 20% of theirs, and then it ages here to make theirs. It's a very good sipping whiskey. And as most of you see, Guilty Gunner, you say chug. I drink whiskey straight for the most part, and it's used for sipping. I don't generally chug it. I won't do shots unless they're lousy and I want to get drunk. And generally at my age, I generally don't want to get drunk. However, if Kirk Cousins throws, a 4-yard pass when we need 8 to get a first down, then I'll do it. Been there, done that. Laura, cheers very much to you too as well. Dalton, you're sober and it sucks. Hey, if you need to be, by all means, be that way. It's a good thing.
Yes, I hate to disappoint people, but there is not vodka or moonshine in my glass. It's just straight tap water today. And a couple of comments down there about Spencer Rattler and the Vikings needing, maybe they should draft a couple of quarterbacks in this draft, and getting Rattler on day 3. The thing about Rattler is I don't think he's going to last till day 3. He's likely going to be picked in the 2nd round or 3rd round, and we currently don't have a 3rd round pick. So I'm not liking our chances of getting Spencer Rattler as quarterback number 2 in this draft, but I do like what I'm hearing about him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Roscoe, do you like that? No, Kirk, we don't like that. Roscoe, comment of the day. Now, but there's one other thing that we haven't talked about. We got sidetracked on quarterback, and Sarah's all for letting Kirk Cousins walk, and we got to find a new one. And we're talking Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy. I love what I saw from JJ McCarthy this week. The kid's a leader. He's got the it factor. I like the it factor. He's got a flaw. I suggest you watch what the breakdown on him that Luke Braun did, friend of the show, Vikings, Locked On Vikings. He did great. And for suddenly, can you hear that? I hit a button and now I've got something playing in the background.
I can't hear it.
There it is. Okay, killed it. Now, I hit a button and I get Tyler Forness in my ear. Not supposed to do that yet. There's but we talk quarterbacks, but there's other things the Vikings need.
Yes, there sure is.
On the defense.
Well, yeah. Another interesting comment, at least to me anyway, that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah made in his press conference was he talked about the defense, Brian Flores' defense. They did some great things in 2024, but he said that he felt that they got bit by the injury bug towards the end of the year. And then he said, and we just didn't have again, paraphrasing here a bit, but he said, we just didn't have the depth to withstand those injuries that we got hit with. And then he said, and that's on me for the fact that the roster did not have the depth required to tide the team over and keep the defense humming throughout the full season. An interesting comment there, I just think, because we talk about, we've been talking about quarterbacks. We've talked many times about how maybe this is the year where the Vikings should draft, trade up, trade a bunch of draft picks this year and next year and move up and get their guy like Jaden Daniels or maybe Drake May or JJ McCarthy. Well, if you're going to do that, then how are you going to address the depth issues on defense? And it's not just on defense; it's on the offense as well. How are you going to do that if you've got if you've traded a bunch of your draft picks in 2024? We've got 9 right now. If that gets to 6, 5 or 6 instead, and maybe in another 1 or 2 next year, well, then that's hurting Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's ability to build up the roster, create more depth, because you do that partly through the draft, also through free agency. But right now, the Vikings are actually sitting. Last week they were 13th in salary cap space. Now they're 16th, so they're sitting right in the middle of the league right now. not bad, not terrible, but not fantastic. But I just think that interesting comment by Kwesi Adolphus, and maybe that comment indicates that the Vikings aren't really gung-ho on trading a bunch of draft capital this year and next to get their guy. They're going to be a bit more patient about that, and they're actually going to try to keep as many draft picks as they can, and maybe even accumulate a few more in this draft to build up that depth, particularly on the defensive side, so that they don't falter if they lose a key guy or two, like Kwesi Adolphus felt they did in 2023. I don't know, just something to think about, something to watch.
It's going to be interesting. Generally, I agree with Tyler on that you want to use free agency to fill your immediate holes and then pick talent in the draft so you can build up that depth, and that takes time over years to build up that depth, especially when it was depleted. You got to find those guys that can start and hope for a nice healthy year and do well. It's going to be interesting. Now, if they draft a quarterback, it sort of almost begs for the Wilfs to give them extensions because it gives them that year. Nobody expects anything out of a rookie quarterback the first year. And that gives you, even if they do, then they've got some defenders that they're drafting, defenders that they're picking up in free agency, and next year to pick up more defenders and make the team more whole, both from starters all the way into depth. And I think that is the track that they're probably going to take. So, and it's up to that man over there, and he's got to get it right. Just like when the Bills GM came on and they talked about getting Josh Allen. He traded up. He says, everybody's complaining I traded too much, but if you hit it, nobody cares.
That's right.
And he hit it. And he goes, if you don't hit it, you get fired.
Yes.
And that's the big deal. If you don't hit it, you get fired, whether it be Kirk Cousins or a draft pick. That guy's job's on the line. So he's under the biggest pressure he's had. That's why last week we talked about him being on the hot seat. And we talked about outside linebackers for a free agent class. This week we hit some of the running backs in the free agent class. We were supposed to do inside linebackers. We didn't have time to build all that up. It's okay. We've already rolled over an hour. And we'll hit that when Darren gets back from sunning himself in Costa Rica.
And at that point, we'll, unlike previous positional unit analysis, might have some answers to some of those questions, because free agency, of course, maybe we'll have brought back Jordan Hicks or not at inside linebacker. We will have signed a free agent cornerback to add to the cornerback room. Maybe we will have traded Lewis Seen. But
who knows?
I think that
possible.
Yeah, I do think Seen's going to get traded, but if he doesn't pick up his game,
here, people.
It's going to happen like at training camp preseason. It's not going to happen in March and April.
Who knows? Somebody may take a shining to him and say, "Hey, he's just the guy we need for a Fangio style defense."
Yes. But yeah, when I come back, we'll have some answers to some of these questions, and there's some big questions: quarterback, Kirk Cousins, Danielle Hunter, those kinds of questions. So it's going to be fun, and I'm not regretting going to Costa Rica when I am, but it is going to be. It kind of sucks as a time too.
You're not.
Yeah, because there's going to be some big news that I'm not going to be able to talk about. But First and SKOL will be talking about it.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And we're covering it. Speaking of covering it, like I alluded to tonight, around the 7 o'clock-ish, maybe a little slightly later, but 7 o'clock-ish, we're going to do a review of today in the draft, day 4. Today was the big round bellies. I love my big round bellies. And the kickers. Yet I did not see a single kicker or punter on TV. It was nothing but the tackles, guards, and centers. Unfortunately, a few of them got hurt. I'm going to be bitching at Tyler about how they shouldn't be running the 40 There's no need for them to be running the 40. They should reduce it to a 20 because a couple of them popped their hammies, and it was every time in that last 10-yard split range. They'd hit about that 30-yard mark, and then pow! And now they can't compete and do the drills. And it's just like, come on, guys. These guys aren't going to be running 40-yard dashes anyways. This is the only time. And all you care about when it comes to the big guys is that first 10 yards and that second 10 yards. After that, you don't care. But Tyler and I are going to be talking about that tonight, 7 o'clock-ish, 7:05, maybe 7:30. So like, subscribe, ring the bell so it pops up. It'll be the fourth and final day of the combine coverage. We appreciate you. Last night, we had our largest viewing audience ever. We had, I think it was over 160 consecutive all at one time on the show. People coming in, people coming out, and we've already hit over 2,500 on the views on that episode. Happen to have the quarterbacks, which we care about, but it was a good show, and we appreciate you. And the round bellies are important too, because we need depth there badly. Badly, we need depth. And you'd hope you'd at least find some depth that can push somebody like Ed Ingram. And I don't think you're going to find a left guard. I think we're going to look for that in the free agency. But it's important to watch because we could use it. New center, guards, depth, the tackle.
Again. Oh.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yes.
Any last words there, Darren?
Couple of things, not really football related. A couple of questions from Aaron and George. George is asking, says, say hi to all the Ticos in Costa Rica. He's got friends in San Jose. I'm not actually flying into San Jose. I'm flying into Liberia. And Aaron's wondering if I'm on the Atlantic or Pacific side. I'll be on the Pacific side, staying in a place called Punta Arenas. So that's and when I come back, I'll start bragging about Costa Rica probably. But
are you doing any fishing?
Also, I'm not a big fisher. I'm going to be eating fish.
Okay.
I'm going to be
the blue sail on the Pacific side is just absolutely fantastic, from what I've been told.
And so that's about it. I'll be back in a couple of weeks, and we'll see you then. And also hoping things go better for the people in Texas who are dealing with the wildfires right now. I know what it's like.
Expert right there.
And it ain't fun. And so I'm hoping that the good people of Texas are all safe and sound from nasty wildfires.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's well over 1 million acres, and it's caused all sorts of problems. But yes, we're supposed to get some rain this week. Hopefully they get some rain as well.
Yes.
Up there in the Panhandle. Well, everybody, that's it. I want you all to have a great rest of your day. Look for the notification to tune in around 7 o'clock-ish. So we go over day 4 of the combine. And as always, hope you're with family, friends, enjoying good meals, great beverage. And what do we say, buddy?
We say, SKOL Vikings, baby.
SKOL Vikings.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcasts as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!